live and work smart. Go to impacthubsb.com or call 284-0078 to find out more.
What's that?
This? The newest online business banking around.
Can you initiate wires and approve transfers?
Yes.
Pay bills?
Check.
Cash management?
Of course.
All business, all online, all on your phone.
You bet. My computer, too. It's Montecito Bank and Trust's new business online banking. It works as hard as I do.
Huh. Montecito Bank and Trust.
You got it. Montecito Bank and Trust. Behind every great community is a great bank. Montecito.bank. Member FDIC.
Welcome back to Co-Work Radio here on KZSB 1290 AM. I'm Catherine Raymond.
And I'm Jane Walker-Wood.
And we are a show all about the modern entrepreneur in case it's the first time you've tuned in, and you can catch us here every week. You can also find us on social media, iTunes, iHeart, YouTube. You can go to our website at coworkradio.com. We're so excited. We have in the studio with us Linda Weinman. Many people know her as Lynda from lynda.com, but really such a Renaissance woman, business owner, a computer instructor, an author, and a movie producer, which is mostly what we want to talk to you about today. You've actually produced 23 documentaries over the last 9 years, including Chasing Coral, which is about our disappearing coral, self-taught computer skills, and really amazing. Of course, along with your husband, you started the company lynda.com. Did you ever wish it was bruce.com?
I think maybe he has wished.
How are you, by the way?
I'm great. Thank
Good.
you for asking.
Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been quite the journey for you, and you still have quite the journey to go.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, sold the business to LinkedIn a couple of years ago, and that was a good and success for you, but self-taught since the beginning. But you actually, this is almost full circle for you, because I was reading you actually began in the motion picture industry, right?
Correct,
yeah.
yes.
So tell me what you did.
Well, I used to work in special effects, and I was an animator. And, my dad was a sound effects editor, so I grew up in a film family.
Would you go to the studio with him?
All the time.
You did?
Absolutely.
How did you learn how to do special effects animation?
I had a boyfriend, actually, who was in that industry. He'd worked on Star Wars.
Oh, wow.
And I was in between things, and he had me assisting him on his animation camera, so I learned how to do all of the, loading of the camera, writing of exposure sheets, just different tasks that he had me do. And
so
then,
when you get your Academy Award, you're going to thank him?
I should, actually. Yeah, he's still a dear friend.
One of your first films was Ted and Bill's Excellent Adventure, and
Love
also
that.
RoboCop 2. Is that right?
Yeah, those are films that I worked on.
Yeah,
yes.
How fun. And now you're doing mostly documentaries. They appeal to you. Why?
Well, I think film has the opportunity to really change hearts and minds. It's really the closest thing that we have in terms of an art form that emulates the world, and so it's immersive. And when you're watching a film, it can really put you in the shoes of a different perspective, and I think more effectively than a lot of other mediums, especially with today's youth and media having changed a lot and people reading less and watching more movies and seeing more online. I just feel that it's the most effective art form that we have for that
And there's a lot more distribution channels now than when you started out.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make it easier or harder to get funding?
I haven't ever been on the needing funding end, so I'm not sure. I would not know how to answer that
How about
question.
getting partners and producers and quality?
I'm not a filmmaker myself, so I've been more on the funding side, and that's new to me. I've actually only been doing that for a few years, so I wouldn't claim to really understand that very well.
So people are submitting scripts to you?
They do, but I typically don't invest at that level. I'm more the type of late-stage investor who will come in when I can see a rough cut
Yeah.
Oh,
and
great.
So, of course, since the time you began in film many, many years ago, back in the RoboCop days, and today, technically, so much has changed, right, with the digital era. And I'm sure you're up to speed on it all because you're the tech woman that you are. Quite a different world today, right?
Yeah.
When you're looking at producing a movie that is a documentary, do you have to think about that technically? I'm such the audio person, but not exactly the visual person. But if you're producing something that you know is going to be released in a movie theater, say, versus Showtime, is it a different production? Or?
No, I mean, the quality on television is pretty much the same quality these days as feature films. It's just how you're going to consume it. A lot of cinephiles, Roger Durling especially, and myself, we invested heavily in the Riviera Theater because we love that communal experience of watching movies together. And also, the film festival here in Santa Barbara is a communal experience. But, I think you do have the opportunity to consume more media because of all the different distribution avenues, different screens. You can, watch a short clip on your phone to, having the full Monty experience of being in a great theater with a great audience.
It was interesting also seeing in your resume that you used to have 2 retail stores back in the early 80s. And is that a business you would ever consider going into now? Retail's really changed.
It's really changed. It was always really hard. And, I went into it young and naive and, because I had learned how to buy. I was a buyer before I owned a store. And it was just sort of a natural career fit for me. But I think the business model has always been tough and is way tougher today.
Do you see any ideas way forward in Santa Barbara for our retail situation?
Well, I think, I would love to see us become more experiential downtown. I think, we could have a lot. If it were for me, I would love to see our town turn into a lot more theaters and living spaces and make it more of a vibrant, experiential center.
What town would you give us as an example as your fantasy town for Santa Barbara?
Well, I think Austin has been pretty amazing. I love what they've done, and they brought a big convention center to town, which brought a lot of people, and they do a lot of different festivals and conferences and have quite a bit of tourism and quite a bit of local flavor, great restaurants.
It's funny you say that. My son, who is 22 years old, just moved to Austin, so I've been there twice in the last 3 months.
Pretty amazing.
And and not only all that, but also a tremendous music scene,
yes.
which for anybody that grew up here in Santa Barbara, as I did, it used to be flourishing. And now it's like Soho is really the only place that offers live music every night. Other places you can go to.
Joyce?
But
James Joyce?
Oh, James Joyce. Yeah, but I'm not sure every night. But there's definitely.
Well, I think we've had
a
very slow growth mentality and protectivism sort of mentality in Santa Barbara, and it's unfortunately we're getting bit by that because we haven't been proactive about our future, and retail is failing everywhere in America. It's not really a viable solution to our problem.
We're talking with Linda Weinman here, and thank you so much for being in. We really appreciate it. You mentioned something just a little bit ago, and I want to give it another plug, which is the Riviera Theater. We had Alan Sides in as a guest a couple of weeks ago, and he did the sound system, and it is phenomenal, folks, if you haven't gone. Talk about an experience, right?
It is, and we're so proud of it, and I think one of the, it's kind of if you build it, they will come. And one of the interesting unexpected consequences of having built it so well is that the studios are reaching out to the film festival, reaching out to Cinema Society to screen first-run films and bring the director, bring the actors.
Which also brings in the tourists, which brings in the money.
Well, it helps us with our film festival ultimately because we're building such amazing relationships with all the studios. But it's more of a year-round effect because the Riviera Theater is a year-round theater, and that's a first for us in the film festival because in the past we only had this 2-week event that we were known for, and now we have year-round programming.
And there's the Cinema Society, right? Are they showing the films there?
Correct, and that's where the studios are reaching out because they want to do a sample run with a cinephile-type audience, and they want the sound to be fantastic. We showed Mudbound, which was, to get back to the other conversation about different distribution avenues, Amazon Film. And they had worked with the Atmos sound, which is, if you're a sound person, it's a very elaborate sound system that we put in that has almost 50 speakers in the ceiling and gives you that kind of 360 experience. But a filmmaker actually has to make the film to those specs. And even though that was on Amazon, the filmmaker, Dee Reese, had been given a budget to do Atmos sound. So we got to see it in that theater, unlike anybody in a home theater would ever get to hear it. Because
That's
of that
interesting.
sound.
I got some of Alan's speakers at home, and then I had him and his wife over, and the movie I downloaded didn't even go off in the back speakers. And I was like, my back speakers don't work. And they're like, no, you got to download it from iTunes and
true.
stuff I didn't even know.
Some of the films, I want to talk to you about some of the films that people can still see, the documentaries that you've produced. One of the best known is something called Chasing Coral. Mm-hmm. And is that one of your favorites about disappearing coral?
It is.
What's happening?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like having a lot of children. You don't want to really say you have a favorite, but it's been critically, so well received, and it's also such an important film right now because the reefs are dying, and nobody really knows what the ocean will be like without.
I think
coral
it's
reefs.
something visually people, unless you're a scuba diver, you're not thinking about.
That's right,
you don't see
and that
it.
was the beauty of having it be filmed like that.
And underwater photography, I mean, not everybody is well versed at underwater photography.
Right.
Did you work closely with your photographers?
Oh, I was the kind of producer that writes a check, doesn't show up on
you're
set.
a dream producer.
Yes.
You're going to be getting a lot of letters after the show.
Part of the editing process, then, or
No, not really.
So
I
you're
mean,
really good at trusting the artist, committing to them, and saying,
for the most part, some filmmakers want notes or they want to show me a cut and get my opinion, but often they don't even want to listen and that's their right, and that is what you are. It's sort of like if you're investing in a company, you're investing in that leadership team. You're partially are going to have to trust their decisions.
How are you convinced to invest with somebody? Because I'm sure it gets to that point where you've gotten to that point where you probably feel like, oh my gosh, everybody wants something. But how does somebody ask you without them feeling like, and do you get multiple scripts, ideas? What makes you endeared to a filmmaker?
Well, I do get a lot of requests, and I'm part of many networks, so I belong to a few funds that support documentary films, and they bring projects to everybody who's invested in the fund, kind of, a lot like business investing. And then you do get to be known by what you've invested in, so I have a lot of repeat filmmakers who I supported at one point, and now they're looking to do their next film or the film after. So it comes from a lot of different angles, and you do have to learn how to say no. You have to hone your curation abilities and decision-making abilities and, figure out why one thing was satisfying and another thing wasn't. So I'm learning on the job, and that was partially my plan. Was I always like to learn and challenge myself to do new things. So I didn't want to just go into the more logical thing for me to do after Lynda.com. I could have been the poster child for Woman Entrepreneur or the poster child for the future of education. And those were the things that I thought maybe I would do next. But as I really sat with that experience of being out of that company and what did I want to do, and film just kept speaking to me, and the opportunity to become president of the board of the Santa Barbara International Film Festival came up, and then I started to be invited to invest in films and go to different workshops that paired filmmakers with investors. And so that stimulated the part of me that loves to learn and loves to do something brand new. So that's what I'm in the
Is that
middle
a real
of.
key to success? We find when we have successful people on the show, they are very curious and have a lot of different interests. How does somebody curate that in themselves if they don't have it, though?
I think, most people who are successful are lifelong learners. They love to learn. They love to be challenged to do new things. And I don't know how you instill it. I mean, I see a lot of people who just don't seem to have that gene or whatever it is. They're just happy to it's not a bad thing. I mean, it takes all types. It takes
Sure.
people who are leaders and people who are followers and people who have other priorities, like, you know, they want to be with their family or they want to, you know, do something that's more of a hobby and they know they can't make their living at that. So I think it just takes all kinds of people. But for me, I'm somebody who needs to challenge myself, and I don't ever get bored because I don't allow myself to be. But that's how I stay, you know, involved.